agronomist segment. We are here today with Phil Long, and we're going to be talking about an exciting topic on the docket, variable rate seeding.
Yeah.
But before we do that, we were just going to talk a little bit about Iowa Soybean Association's conference that you came back from.
Sure, yeah. Just had an opportunity to go down there for a couple days. I always enjoy, ever since I've been in the state of Iowa, it seems like I enjoy going to that conference. It's a good research-based conference. They give a lot of good information. Sometimes too much without you don't have enough opportunities to go to all the sessions, which is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of great topics, a lot of meat and substance, and even some guys that were kind of entertaining too. So I listened to one of the guys from Ohio State. He's a professor in precision ag. I've listened to him before, and a lot of good information. It kind of got people on the edge about where the future is going with precision ag, and he kind of talked a lot about data handling and management, but he kind of kept it broad, which was nice. And then he kind of talked about it actually from the perspective of how a particular book and vehicles, how they track. You know, we have our own weather and everything, you know, on our cars, you know, so someday, you know, they may tap into that to have more weather stations, you know, and just a lot of sensors on there. Someday they may pay us to have cars. So
well,
there's some mind-blowing things there. And then one of the guys talked about how, you know, someday we may have something like a smart grid where we have, you know, panels that solar panels and stuff we plug in, and then they charge our cars, and then our cars charge our house when it's cloudy, you know, or something. So it's just a lot of, you know, stuff that was kind of over the top and really neat to think about. Hopefully it's a few years off, but realistically, probably not. You know, we're moving at a really fast pace nowadays, and that's why it's exciting to be in precision ag.
Yeah, for sure, which goes right into our topic, variable rate seeding. So we're going to talk a little bit, about the what, why, and hows.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
So variable rate seeding, number one, why? You know, a lot of guys ask that question, you know, why should I do it? You know, my first thought when they say that is yes, there's an investment. For some guys, no. If you have it on your planner, to me, why not? You know, why not experiment? Why not figure out if it fits on your farm? On the flip side of that, if you don't have it on your equipment, then there isn't the investment cost. But, you know, quite simply, the reasons for doing it are matching that population rate to a particular area in the field. So really what you're kind of doing is you're getting the competition in the right way in that field. So with corn, you know, you may lower the seeding rate in a sandy spot. That's typically how we do it, you know, depending on productivity. Lower that population, allow more inter-row, you know, within the row spacing, allow those roots to have more room to explore. That way when the weather gets bad, you know, we don't have rain and the moisture's lacking, those roots don't have to compete so much.
So is that seeding rate directly dependent on just the soil type, or are there other variables?
No, there's lots of variables, and that's actually the last part there. So I have all the following up here, but yeah, there's a lot of variables to take into mind, you know, and I can start off by just saying soil types. You know, you have your say something like a nice beautiful silt loam compared to a loamy sand, you know.
Right. So
those, if you follow, you know, if you understand textures really well, you know, so sand being in the last part of that, loamy sand, you know, it's more of a sand than a loam. So the water holding capacity is not there. You know, that's probably one of the biggest factors. But then we look at things like productivity. Productivity primarily comes from yield maps, but also soil testing. You know, you don't want to leave some of those things out. They're all intertwined. So yeah, that's a good question. The other thing to me is cost savings. You know, not everybody's going to see the same, and that's what I always caution guys. Don't get too excited I've had guys come, they have 150 acre field, nice square, flat black, you know, tiled every 40 feet. You know, that may be more of a challenge to match a variable rate seeding plan to. If you don't have the variability in your field, it's a little more of a challenge. But those guys that do have more variability and have those ups and downs in different soil types, or, you know, you go further west out in the Nebraska area and they have irrigation, it makes a lot of sense. Those guys can see $20, $30 an acre savings just in seed costs. From changing from the corners to the where the pivot is under the pivot. So there's a lot of potential there. You just got to figure out. This is one I would say in particular. Variable rate seating is got to be tried out on your farm. You got to figure out how it fits.
Right. Okay.
So.
Good deal. And then we're going to go through and understanding it for your farm.
Yeah. So the next, I drew a picture in there. Not sure how well they can see it, but I did want to just kind of talk about variability. We talk. It seems like in precision ag, I try to hit on variability and understanding that almost every week. But I learn by repetition, so it helps me, and hopefully it helps everybody else. But this is actually a picture of one of our farms, and believe it or not, this is only 34 acres. But you can kind of see even if you can see that greener spot there where the weeds and stuff are, unfortunately, that year, versus this spot here, which looks like it's only about 50 feet away. It's actually about a 20-foot difference in height.
Wow.
So you go up there, it's a big hill. So these are all hills. They're highly eroded spots where you wouldn't want to drop, say, 36,000 population, where this beautiful black dirt mixed in here somehow. This is close to the river, so we have some effect in that sand and so forth blowing up. But where a 36 may work really well here, you're wasting it there, and then the hybrid doesn't have what it needs, and pushing that population, increasing that competition, is going to really fold backwards the yield of that area. So, and actually, this field to me is the picture perfect variable field, because we got really heavy muck up at the other side of it. It drowns out about every year. So we've got things from sand to nice silt loam in the middle, and then a muck at the very top. So fields like that would be your first choice.
Okay.
Aim for fields like that if you want to test it out. And I will add, if you don't have planter technology, you can still try this out. Just try it in the strips. So plant a strip at 36,000. Plant a strip at 32,000. Plant a strip at 27,000 across there. And then when you get the yield map back, we can analyze it based on those geographies or soil types or whatever, however you want to distinguish it. We can separate that out and pick it apart within those strips.
Yep, that would be a good first year, if you don't have the technology, to see where it's at and if it's even beneficial.
You really learn by doing, and I'll say this all the time, but on-farm research is your biggest, should be your biggest driver to increasing your productivity on your farm. And you can do that without technology. It's a little more challenging without yield monitor and stuff, but you can certainly do it without the technology on the planter.
Okay, that sounds good. Good stuff. All right, and then we can jump right to the how. So if you're interested, you've convinced them, good job.
Because a lot of people that are watching are like, I want to make that jump, or I want to try it out. Maybe they have the technology or something. So I wanted to put some things down there that help guys think about what needs to be considered when you get to that point.
Right.
Because as I'll talk about, we'll hit on hopefully in a week or two here, kind of go through maybe a demo of using our Climate Field View program. A lot of guys can use that, even within Surgo soil zones, to create different parts of the field and put different populations for themselves. So we'll go through that. It is pretty awesome. And we'll talk through that too here in a week or two, maybe do a good demo for everybody to show them how they can do that the best way. So start right off the top of the bat here. I have seeding rate versus harvest population. And to me is extremely important from the standpoint of a lot of people don't understand the difference. When you're putting a seeding rate of 34,000 out there, or this is really true in beans, and there are guys that variable rate beans, and that's kind of a different discussion on corn, but if you put a seeding rate of 180,000 on beans, is that there at the end of the season? Is it there before you harvest? And a lot of guys don't go out there and check, and they don't realize that there's some attrition there, and some of those plants are going to die off because of competition, especially in beans, but even in corn. Whether it's seedling diseases or things later on, there's some diseases that can get them later on in the season. You may not have 32,000 or whatever out at the end of the season.
Right.
So understanding that difference, if you're going to put 38,000 out there, take the time to go out there in August, September timeframe before you harvest and do some stand counts. And that'll give you an idea, okay, I planted 38. After I planted, I still had 36.5, whatever. At the end of the season, I only had 33. So, that happens a lot more than people realize. So understanding that difference, I think, is key if you're going to do research. That should be one thing you go out and make the time to take the note on. So hybrid characteristics. And we don't have time to go through each of our hybrids, but I did bring one of our product guides in. And within the product guide at the bottom of the page, you'll have a chart here. And that'll give you all those agronomic characteristics, including things like ear flex. We've even got plant stature, plant type. So is it an upright leaf? Is it a taller variety? Those kind of things all should play into how you place it.
Right.
How our dealers and our artisans work so hard to place it on your farm, but then also how you vary that population.
Right.
So you don't want to, when it comes to ear flex, you don't want to put a determinate ear type on a sandy soil and push the population.
Right.
Because that's going backwards. Your ears are going to be this.
They won't go anywhere.
they're going to be determined early, and they're going to be shot. That's why there's more flex, semi-flex, and flexible hybrids that you can put at a lower population. It makes use of that extra area and root growth that it has, and puts on a better ear than what a more fixed, determinate ear type would.
Right.
So those are very important. Also, consider the tillage system and crop rotation. I mean, you can't, if you're doing no-till versus conventional till, that should be a factor in that. It should be a factor in how much you seed to begin with, whether you're doing variable rate or not.
Right.
But it should be factored into your variable rate. Productivity, I talked about that a little bit earlier on, but that's things like fertility, but then also account for yield variability. So you should hopefully you have yield maps you can go off from, use those to your advantage. But then the fertility side, I've talked about corrected, managing and correcting it. Can you correct it? Is it a pH issue? If it is, you might want to start with that before you try variable rate or any kind of, I would say top-end type of management style. You want to start with the basics, and I'll say that there was a really good talk yesterday on that too about soybeans. Obviously, Iowa Soybean Association, but starting with the basics. The first thing they said, if you want to achieve really high yields in soybeans, first thing they mentioned was pH, and potassium and so forth. So, you got to start with the basics before you can ever, don't come up and say, oh, VR seeding doesn't work on my farm. And if I ask for the soil reports and you've got, pHs of, 4s or, some crazy pH number, then we need to go backwards a little bit. So the last thing I put on there, I hear a lot of guys try variable rate seeding, and this is something else we'll talk about in the demo as well. But when they vary their seeding rates, a lot of times they'll vary it by 500, to 1,000 seeds. And if you're varying it by that little, I would suggest it may not be worthwhile. Maybe that field doesn't have that much variability, or maybe you're just not. You're not willing to take much risk, because sometimes you have to take a little risk to see some reward. And that comes to me even in terms of nitrogen too. I told a lot of guys, if you really want to find out the correct nitrogen rate for your farm, you have to be willing to put on less, a lot less. Sometimes even 50 pounds or less to find out where that drops off at. If you don't know where it drops off at, how do you know where where the sweet spot is? So, and it's the same way with variable rate seeding, but you need to be varying it. And this isn't a set in stone. This isn't, you have to do 3,000, but to me, that's kind of a minimum.
A suggested.
Highly suggested. I know some people say 4,000, but at least 3,000 seeds per acre, that way if you're on really sandy ground, drop it down to 27, whatever, check with somebody you trust first, but obviously do that thing I put at the top, check the harvest population too. So take your stand counts and then at the end of the season go back, because that'll really put it into perspective of, is it worthwhile, is it working, how many are dying if I'm putting 38,000 out there, that kind of thing. If you want to push into the 40s, that's been the discussion the last several years with some of our hybrid technology that we have out there. You really need to find that out, and you need to understand that final number. Just jumping in the combine and harvesting in it tells you one piece, but not everything you need to know.
Right. So. Well, very interesting. Lots of value this morning, and I hope our viewers found it as well.
Yeah, I hope so.
So hopefully we can do a demo next week.
Yep.
We will do a little bit of letting you guys know on Facebook and Twitter to see what we end up with, but that would be pretty cool.
Give it a good shot. We'll see if we can survive past the snowstorm we're going to get to.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully. All right. Well, thanks, Phil, for joining us, and thanks to our listeners for tuning in. Have a good day.